Hello and welcome to a new Peakboard tutorial. Today, I'll be showing you how you can read data from and write data to your Rockwell PLCs. So without further ado, let's jump right in. We'll start by adding the star of the show, the Rockwell PLC. You can add your data source under Data, Add Data Source, Rockwell. At the very top, you'll have to define a name for your data source. And since I'm not really that creative, I'll just go with Rockwell for this example. Continue by adding your PLC's IP address, as well as setting the reload interval to your desired time. I'll go for 1 reload per second. You'll also have to define which PLC type you're using. Since we're running a ControlLogix PLC, I'll select that, but any PLC listed here will work as well. Since your PLC could be running multiple different programs, you'll have to select the correct one. Last thing on our checklist, the values. You can either define values using the plus button, or you can pull a list of all the existing ones and select the ones you need. For this showcase, I'll grab a boolean as well as an int. Okay, one last check before we move on. And it works the way it's supposed to. Great, let's move on. What you can see here is me adding in some boxes to make this whole thing look a lot cleaner. I'm also adding in a headliner at the top telling me what machine I'm looking at. Using linear gauges can be great to visualize one particular value. In this case, I'm linking the current value to the int coming from Rockwell, and I'll set the maximum value to 100. In an actual production facility, you might want to set the maximum value to something like an ordered quantity coming from SAP. I'll also add a text displaying the int right in the middle of our linear gauge. Since there's no font big enough for this text, I'll quickly add one. In order to do that, I'll move into the font manager, duplicate the header 1 font, name it huge, and set its font size to 280. Now I'll just have to link the correct font and we're already looking a lot better. Here you can see me adding in some more text. Usually you'd get values like the target quantity and the customer name from SAP, but this really isn't the focus of today's video. If you'd like to learn more about integrating your SAP system into Peakboard, please check out the link at the top right corner of your screen. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, not only can you read from Rockwell, but you can also write to Rockwell. That's why you see me create 2 buttons here. The start button will set the bool to true, and the stop button will set it to false. Now to the scary part, the scripts. But don't worry, it is a lot easier than it sounds. What you can see here is what we call the block mode, or the low-code solution. On the right-hand side, you'll see a function explorer, which contains every function you could possibly need for your script. You can move these functions around using drag and drop. So we're adding a write tag function. This will allow us to send something to our Rockwell. Since we want this function to set the boolean to true, we're going to add a write tag function, input our parameters, and add a boolean at the bottom. And it really is that easy. For our stop button, we're going to do the exact same thing, but this time we're going to set the boolean to false. Last but not least, we're going to apply some conditional formatting. We're basically telling the element to turn red if the boolean is set to false. This will help signalizing whether the machine is running or not. And we are done, ladies and gentlemen. Now, only thing left to do is hit the preview button and see if it works. And as you can see, it is constantly counting up in increments of 1. Once we hit stop, it'll turn red and stop counting. And if we hit start again, it'll keep counting, it'll all go back to normal, and we can see that our machine is running.